بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, we're continuing our second session regarding the Dajjal. Who is the Dajjal? What is he going to do? What are some of his trials and tribulations? How will he test the people? Some of these things we have covered last week. And inshallah, this is our second week, which is a continuation from last week, what we had discussed. So last week, we talked about some of the descriptions of Dajjal, what he's going to do, right? Things of that nature. And I told you last week about a figure in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was known as Ibn Sayyad. And many Sahaba radiallahu anhum, including Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself, they had a lot of speculation that perhaps this Ibn Sayyad, he could be the Dajjal. And who is Ibn Sayyad? He is a young boy at the time of the Prophet alayhi salam. So let us analyze a few of these narrations inshallah, and then we're going to look a little closer look at these. So first we have Imam Tirmidhi rahimahullah. He says, he narrates from the Prophet alayhi salam that Dajjal, when he's going to be born, he will be born to parents who didn't have children for a very, very long time, and they're going to hope that they can have kids. And finally, they'll give birth to what a wonderful child. Dajjal is going to be their child. And there will be absolutely no goodness in him. And he'll be blind in one eye. And the other description that was given, sure we're good here. The other description that was given is that when he sleeps, his eyes will sleep, but his heart will remain awake. This is the description that's given. This is the type of person that Dajjal is going to be. So then what happens? In Medina Munawwara, you had a tribe of the Yahud who were also living there. And a child was born amongst them that exactly fit this description. Exactly. Every detail, it was matching. So some of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, in particular Abu Bakr, not Abu Bakr, but Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, and Sayyidina Zubayr radiallahu anhu, they went to go and investigate. What is the reality behind this matter? What is the reality behind this child that has been born? So when they went, they saw that he was like in the sun, and he was covered in a cloth, and they could hear some muttering, little bit of murmur. He's talking something, he's whispering something. And when they went closer, they're talking amongst each other, and the child was sleeping, but it was like talking in its sleep. And suddenly, this child removed the cloth from his face, and he says, "What are you guys talking about?" This is a child. This is like a newborn baby, and he's speaking. He's saying, "What are you guys talking about?" So they look at each other in astonishment, and they're like, first of all, like the kid is talking, they're amazed. They say, "Did you hear us speaking? You were asleep when we came. Did you hear that we're talking?" So he said, "Yeah. Don't you know? My eyes sleep, but my heart remains awake." Exactly what the description of Dajjal is going to be. So from this, there were a lot of Sahaba radiallahu anhum and the Prophet alayhi salam. They said, this Ibn Sayyad, this is definitely the Dajjal. And they would even take oaths. They would take a qasam on it. Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu anhu, Jabir radiallahu anhu, they would say, "I can take an oath by the name of Allah that this Ibn Sayyad, this is the Dajjal." There is absolutely no doubt in my mind about this. And when was Ibn Sayyad born? The time of the Prophet alayhi salam. So if that is Dajjal, that means what? By this time, he's been doing a lot of work. And he's been preparing the groundwork for when he will finally come out. Another hadith mentions that the Prophet ﷺ himself, he would go into the gardens where Ibn Sayyad would play, and he would investigate to see what is he doing, what is he talking about. And in one particular incident, the Prophet ﷺ went and he was murmuring these things. He would say things to himself. It shows that he was from childhood, he had some type of relationship with jinns and with demons and this type of thing. So as the Prophet ﷺ began to come closer to see what is he talking about, what happened? His mother called right away. And she said, Ya Saf, Ya Saf. She called him and said, watch out, these people are here and they're trying to investigate and listen on what you're saying. So he got up from his trance and he stopped whatever was going on. So from this you can see that even the Prophet ﷺ, he would investigate and he would go and he would look at this young child to see what is his reality. And there's another narration which says, the Prophet ﷺ went to him once and he said, do you testify that I'm the Rasul of Allah? Do you testify that I am the messenger of Allah? And what did Ibn Sayyad say? He replied, I testify that you're the Rasul of the Arabs. In other words, you're not my Rasul, na'udhu billah. You're the Rasul of those people. And this young boy, look at the audacity. He says, do you bear witness that I am the Rasul of Allah? He said that to the Prophet ﷺ. So you can see that type of nature, to be so bold in the face of a prophet and challenge nubuwah. What does that show you? That's the hallmark of Iblis, of Shaitan and Dajjal, and being a demon and being an evil type of person. So he expressed all of this in his childhood. And the Prophet ﷺ, when he said this, the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't reply anything back to him in the negative. Right? So some people might ask, why didn't the Prophet ﷺ reject him and say, no, I don't believe that you're the Rasul of Allah? Of course not. So some of the muhaddithin, they say, the reason why the Prophet ﷺ stayed silent is because he knew in the back of his mind that perhaps this is a type of messenger of Allah. What messenger? The Dajjal, who's going to come not as a good messenger in that sense, like a prophet, Nabi, na'udhu billah, no. But he's going to come as someone that Allah has destined him for this. So that's why the Prophet ﷺ, some people they say, that is why he remained silent when that happened. So another time the Prophet ﷺ sees this young child and he says, Inni akhba'tu laka khabi'ah, or kama qal. He says, I've hidden something for you. Like I'm trying to test you. You think you're so powerful and you know all of these things and you can read the future and you have all these satanic powers. I've hidden something for you. Tell me what I've hidden for you. And the Prophet ﷺ, in his mind, he had hidden dukhan. Right? It comes in the Quran. فَارْتَقِبْ يَوْمَ تَأْتِ السَّمَاءُ بِدُخَانٍ مُبِينٍ. Dukhan, the smoke. It's a whole surah. And this part is mentioned in the Quran. So Ibn Sayyad, he's thinking. And he's trying to reply. And he's thinking, what is this that the Prophet ﷺ has hidden? And he's testing me with. So finally he replies, Dukh. The original word is what? Dukhan. But what does he reply? Dukh. So what does that show you? Kind of, he got on the right track. But fully, he was not able to do so. So this shows that the powers of shaitan, shayateen, demons, evil, all of these things, they're always going to be deficient. By Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy, their powers will always be restricted. They're not going to have as much power as belief, as iman, as Quran, as piety. Never will they be able to reach those things. And that's why in every era you see that the Anbiya alayhimus salam, they were always victorious. Their message has always been the one which would last. Fir'aun, he dropped down. Iblis, Shaitan, he dropped down. Like all of these previous forces, Namrud, he also was defeated. All of these people that were disgraced and their evil and satanic ambitions completely crumbled before their eyes. Like this Dajjal also, he's not going to have a lot of power in front of true and strong Iman. Right? And this is something that when we discuss this topic, it's important for everyone to understand. Right? That sometimes people, they hear, oh, Dajjal, wow, so interesting, so amazing, so powerful. They want to hear all of the description, what's going to happen, what is he going to be like. And sometimes people, you start to think of Dajjal as like this Superman type of, very great and powerful, all-powerful creature. Right? Allah has given him certain abilities. But remember, in the end, it is Islam, it is deen, it is purity, which is always going to prevail. Right? With takbir, with tahleel, with taking the name of Allah, all of these satanic forces will completely be depleted. They'll be destroyed. Right? So we should never feel like when we talk about these things, and then we sort of go into awe. Wow, so powerful, so amazing. SubhanAllah, if you want to know what is amazing, look at the Quran that Allah has given us. That is amazing. One verse of the Quran cannot compare to any of the power of Dajjal. Read the first 10 surahs of Surah Al-Kahf. That will give you protection from all of these things that Dajjal will come with. Right? So, this is something that we must always keep in mind. Going back to Ibn Sayyad. The next hadith we're going to come to is an incident that took place with Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu anhu. He was one time with Ibn Sayyad. And again, why are we talking about Ibn Sayyad? Because we want to know, who is Dajjal? Who is he, first of all? Has he already come out? Is he going to come out in the future? Who is he? This was the first person in the time of the Prophet ﷺ that a lot of doubts and theories were coming out. People thought that this is him. Right? So what exactly happened? Abu Sa'id Khudri radiyallahu anhu, he says that one day he was in proximity with Ibn Sayyad. And they were resting at a certain place, and he was looking for a place to rest, and the only place was next to Ibn Sayyad. Unfortunately, that was the only place that he could find. And nobody else, that space was basically left empty, because nobody else wanted to sit next to him. Because everyone was kind of afraid, and they had these suspicions and doubts about him. But later on in his life, he claimed to have accepted Islam. Later on in his life. So now, here's Abu Sa'id Khudri, he's sitting, and Ibn Sayyad is next to him. So Ibn Sayyad, he starts to try and make Abu Sa'id Khudri feel pity on him. Make him feel sad for himself. So he says, oh Abu Sa'id, why are you guys doing this to me? Why are you guys saying all of these things about me? In other words, you guys claim that I'm Dajjal. You guys claim the most horrible person that's ever going to come out. You claim that that's me. And look what he starts to say. He says, well, don't you know? Dajjal is not going to be Muslim. And I'm a Muslim. Dajjal is not going to be able to enter Medina Munawwara. Where do you see me entering? I'm in Medina Munawwara. And some of the different signs which the Prophet ﷺ talked about that Dajjal would have, Ibn Sayyad is saying, look, you see that those signs are not in me. So why do you guys still say this about me? Why do you guys still believe this about me? So Abu Sa'id Khudri radiyallahu anhu, he's like, do I sympathize with this guy? Do I run away from him? Is he being honest here? What's going on? Abu Sa'id Khudri radiyallahu anhu, he's also very hesitant. And eventually, long story short, Ibn Sayyad ends the conversation with what? He says, yeah, but at the same time, I wouldn't mind being the Dajjal. And at the same time, I know exactly where he is right now. And he starts saying things like this. And then again, Abu Sa'id Khudri is like, he made a bad dua on him, and he's like, may you be destroyed. First you get all this pity and sympathy, and why are you saying this about him? And then in the end, he's like, yeah, I know where he's at. I know what's the deal. I know when he's going to come. I know everything about him. If it was me, I wouldn't mind. And Abu Sa'id Khudri is like, man, this guy just, he put my heart towards one side to sympathize with him. Now all of a sudden he says this. He said, may you be destroyed. So you can see, he's a very deceiving type of person. And Dajjal, remember we talked last week? What does Dajjal mean? It comes from the word Dajjal, which means to mix things around. You mix truth with falsehood. All of these salient features, you're kind of seeing it inside of Ibn Sayyad. Another incident that happened was, he once had a debate with Ibn Umar, Abdullah bin Umar, radiyallahu anhu. Whatever happened between them, he agitated Ibn Sayyad to such an extent that he started puffing up. Literally, his body started puffing up. So big, the narration mentions, that it almost blocked the entire road. Do you know any human being that when they become angry, they puff up to the extent that they almost block the whole road? Anyone? Maybe, you get a little vein popping out right here. Maybe you become a little bit red. You get angry. You might shout a few words here and there, but you've never seen anyone puff up that they're going to cover a whole road. So again, what does this show you? This person had something going on. He was a little bit fishy. Things were not really making sense with this man. And when Abdullah bin Umar came home, his sister Hafsa radiyallahu anha, she got angry at him. And she said, what is it with you and Ibn Sayyad? Why are you agitating him and provoking him? Don't you know that Rasulullah ﷺ said that Dajjal will emerge because of an anger that will anger him? He'll be provoked because of some anger, and that's going to just make him spurt out and come and make his emergence and his appearance. So she was like, why are you provoking the guy? So this shows you that she also thought, this is the Dajjal. Don't provoke him that he's now going to make his emergence and his appearance. Don't do that. Why are you doing this? So you can see from thus far what we have covered, this guy is someone who is very, very shaky, very, very ajib type of figure. And it's kind of confusing to see the reality of who this man is. Now, the next thing that we're going to cover is going back to the riwayah of Tamim Dari. So, there's a lot of different areas and aspects that we're going to analyze here. So I want everyone to really pay attention, okay? So when I say Ibn Sayyad, you got to know who that is. That's this young child that we're talking about. And when I say the hadith of Tamim Dari, that is what we discussed last week. The narration where Tamim Dari radiyallahu anhu, he was traveling in the sea, and suddenly the storms pushed them away and they ended up in the middle of an island. And then what happened after that? The big beast was there. And he said, Ana al-Jassasa, I'm the spy. And then he said, come in the cave and I'm going to show you the big boss. And when he goes inside of the cave, the guy asks a few questions. Have the gardens of so-and-so, are they still giving dates? Soon they're not going to give any dates anymore. How about the Tabari river? Is it still giving water? Soon it's going to dry up. Has the Prophet come from Medina? Or has the, an indication towards the Prophet ﷺ? Has he come out? He says, yes, he's come out. He gives all these indications. And then he says, Ana al-Masih al-Dajjal. I am the Dajjal, and soon I'm going to emerge. He says, I'm going to come everywhere, but I'm not going to enter Medina and Mecca. So, the description of that figure, let's take a look. What did that person look like? And then let's compare, what does Ibn Sayyad look like? So you guys understand now. Ibn Sayyad is that person, the young child. And the hadith of Tamim Dari, we're talking about that beastly figure that was chained up and locked away in the cave. So Tamim Dari radiallahu anhu, and remember again we talked about the Jassasa. Dajjal in that cave was accompanied by who? A spy. And this shows you what? The framework and the, planting the ground and getting everything ready for Dajjal is going to be based on what? Spying, surveillance, collection of data, finding everything out about every single person, right? Getting all of their information documented, knowing everything about a person. That's all part of the Dajjali system. That's part of his agenda, his groundwork, his framework. So anyway, in that narration, Tamim Dari radiallahu anhu, he says that the Dajjal which was chained up, he was extremely huge. And he had extremely long hair, very tall, very big, and he has extremely long hair, and he's tied up. And then when you look at the narrations that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned about Dajjal, he said Dajjal is not going to have super long hair, he's going to have curly hair. We talked about this last week, some of his descriptions. He'll have curly hair, and he's not going to be super tall. He's going to be more short, but he'll be very broad. So you see, there's some contradiction here between that figure that was in the cave and what the Prophet ﷺ would mention about Dajjal. It also mentioned, Prophet ﷺ said, Dajjal is going to be shabun, he's going to be a young man. Tamim Dari, he said that the guy inside of the cave was a sheikh, he was an old man. So now you can see there's some type of discrepancy going on here. So the way that we could understand how this would make sense is that Dajjal himself, he's not going to be completely man, and he's not going to be completely jinn. He's going to be a type of hybrid individual. And he will basically be one person, but he will work through different bodies. And wallahu a'lam, I didn't read this anywhere from any of the previous ulama, so I'm not going to say that this is like true 100% or something, but some of the riwayat say that he's going to be white-skinned, fair color. Some riwayat mention that he's going to be brown-skinned. So how is it that he's different colors? Wallahu a'lam, maybe one of the reasons could be he will occupy different bodies because he's from the jinnat. Right? So some of these things that you see here, the powers that he'll have, the things that Ibn Sayyad used to do, puff up, he's kind of imagining things which are in the minds of other people. Normal humans don't do things like this. He'll command the sky and the rain will come down. He'll command the earth and the vegetation will start to grow. He'll tell people that, come to life and they'll be resurrected. Normal humans don't do these kinds of things. So this shows you that he's going to have a lot of influence from a demon type of nature, which is why a lot of people say that he's going to be a jinn, that he is a jinn, right? And there's also an indication for this. There's a riwayat in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad where some of the people will ask the Muslims, why don't you just attack him? When he comes out and the trials and tribulations are going to reach a very difficult level, they say, why don't you just attack him? And what will they say? They'll say, this is not a normal man, this is a jinn. How will you attack him? This is a jinn. Another narration, which is we're going to come in the future, the end of Dajjal. How is he going to die? Isa alayhi salam, some riwayat say, when he sees Isa, he will melt. He will melt. Do humans melt? They don't melt. And other narrations say that Isa alayhi salam, he will put his dagger into the blood and he'll show it to the people as proof. You thought this guy could never leave? You thought his trials and tribulations would never end? Look, here's the blood. Blood is an indication of what? Human. So, wallahu a'lam. The exact nature of this has not been mentioned, but this is some of the interpretations that the ulama have given, that he is possible. One of the possibilities is that he is like a jinn which can go into different types. And that is why when Tamim Dari narrated this, the Prophet ﷺ didn't object. He called all the people of Medina, he called them to the masjid, and he narrated this to them. And he said, this is how it has been in our narrations. If the Prophet ﷺ didn't approve of the narration, he wouldn't have said it. He wouldn't have called all the people. So he approved of it. Despite the fact that the other riwayat say, he's going to be young, he's going to be curly-haired. So he didn't oppose it. So what does that show you? It's possible that Dajjal can take on different forms because he's a jinn. Now, once we've understood till this point, Dajjal, like we said, command the sky, rain falls, command the earth, vegetation is growing. How is he going to manage to reach such levels of power and doing things? So to understand this, we have to go back in time. You guys ready? You guys ready for the time machine? All right. Jump in the time machine. You guys in? Seatbelts are on? Dajjal is basically... Sorry, one second. Dajjal is basically the biggest tool that the shaitan will utilize. Shaitan, Iblis, what is his goal? Take people away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he uses different tactics, different plans to execute his goal. Of his tactics and his plans, the greatest one is going to be Dajjal. So Dajjal and Shaitan, they have a very close relationship. They're buddies. They're partners in crime. They help each other. Right? So firstly, let's look at the Shaitan. Before you can understand Dajjal, look at Shaitan and who he was. Or who he is. And what does he do. So I'm not going to go into too much detail of this because it's going to take too long. But we all know Shaitan started off the whole story of Adam alayhi salam. He was too prideful to accept in a human being to have authority over him and to be superior to him. He could not accept that. I'm made from fire, he's made from dust. Fire is superior to dust. So from the time that he got rejected because of that, he became rajim. He was outcasted from Jannah. He made it his goal to lead insan astray. And what will he use? Allah has given him certain tools that he will use to lead the people astray. This is Allah's divine wisdom that He has given him. This is part of the whole test for mankind, is that Allah has given him certain things. And Allah tells us in the Quran what some of these tools are. Imagine. Allah tells us what these tools are. What's the purpose of telling us these tools? Protect yourself. Protect yourself. If you know the tool of your enemy, you know the weapons of your enemy, what should you do? Make your plans to defend yourself from those weapons. Right? So, one thing just to keep in mind is that, or actually I'll mention as we continue. Allah mentions in the Quran, وَاسْتَفْزِزْ مَنِ اسْتَطَعْتَ مِنْهُمْ بِصَوْتِكَ وَأَجْلِبْ عَلَيْهِمْ بِخَيْلِكَ. Number one, incite the people using your voice. Allah is telling the shaitan, incite the people, influence the people, trick the people using what? Your voice. And the Mufassirin mention that the voice of shaitan refers to music. Musical instruments, musical lyrics, right? And you can see today how Dajjal, his whole agenda and his mission is going to be to control. And look today, what has controlled the hearts and minds of many people? The way you think, right? The way you think, the way you talk, right? A lot of people, the way the music they listen to, that's how they start talking. You know? If you listen to rap music, "Hey, what's up, dog?" You're going to start talking like that. You listen to country music, "Well, how you doing, my folks?" You're influenced. The way you think, the way you talk, all of these are influences, shaitan. He uses all of these tricks, right? So, it's really amazing if you think about this. Allah is telling us, this is shaitan's trick against you, but what does insan do? You put on those headphones, you glue your eyes to, all of the filth on social media and TikTok and this and that. What are you basically doing? You're giving an open invitation to shaitan that, look, here's my mind. It's an open workshop for you. I'll put on those earphones and let you do the work. Influence my mind as you wish. Right? And Allah is telling us these are the shaitan's weapons. Would you ever go to your enemy and say, you know that weapon that you got? That gun right there, that AK-47? Yeah, just put it on my head right here and do what you want. Would anyone in their right state of mind do that? No. If you know your enemy has a gun, you're going to protect yourself. Allah tells us the voice of shaitan, his music, this is one of his ropes that he will pull people in by. Right? And some have also said, the news agencies. This is the voice of the shaitan. And you can see the relationship. Riwayat mention also that Dajjal, his voice will go from east to west. Believe in me, I am the creator. His voice will go where? From east to west. How do people's voices reach east to west today? News agencies. And if you look at it, whose news gains dominance? Whose word gets priority? The people in power. Whatever story that they want to put, whatever narrative that they want to push for, whatever agenda that's in their minds, they will use the news to make the masses think in the same light, to think in the same direction. This is part of the shaitan's voice. And that is also how Dajjal will give that voice to, shaitan will also give part of that voice to Dajjal and allow him to be heard from east to west. Right? All part of his system. Right? As we mentioned, Dajjal, it means to gold plate something that is nasty, something that is dirty, make it look valuable. Right? And that's exactly what they do. Freedom of speech. Wow, mashallah, give people rights. Let them express themselves, right? It sounds like a good thing. And then freedom of speech means what? It turns into blasphemy. All the agenda of Dajjal, right? For example, you also have anti-Semitism, right? Of course, it's not a good thing to be racist. It's not a good thing to be biased for any religion, right? But when truth is declared as truth, suddenly you become a racist. When you tell the truth, your posts and things on Facebook, you get banned and you get blocked. Your voice is not heard anymore, right? When innocent children are killed and murdered, those stories are not put up. Other useless things will be put in their place to make people forget about it, right? Family planning. Family planning for a better future. Wow, better future. Sounds so amusing. MashaAllah, great life. You know what's the reality behind that? The murdering of innocent children and babies. Abortion. That's what's hidden behind this gold plating of Dajjal. Integration. Integration sounds like a good thing, right? You're up to date with the times, you're up to date with your people and your country. But what does that entail in their minds? Give up your beliefs. I was reading the other day, I think it was in Germany. There was a guy, they didn't give him citizenship just because in the ceremony or whatever, he refused to shake hands with the lady. So they said, you're not integrating into the society so therefore we revoke your citizenship. After everything had gone through. أَجْلِبْ عَلَيْهِمْ بِخَيْلِكَ. Basically, send your armies, send your horses, send your might and your power. This is the second thing which shaitan is going to use. Right? He's going to use force, he's going to use military power, he's going to use bloodshed, warfare. And that's one of the biggest things that Dajjal is also going to use, because he'll kill people, right? And he will wage war. وَشَارِكْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَوْلَادِ. Join them in their wealth, right? Entice them to commit interest dealings, haram means of acquiring wealth, and join them in their children as well, right? So in the upbringing of children, join them in this as well. And some people say today, you can see that how shaitan has become a partner in the upbringing of youth and children. Because from the time that they're young, they're put into a daycare. From the time that they're young, parents have to go to work. That's the whole agenda, and the society has been pushed in this direction. That there's no one there to nurture the kids, nurture their iman, nurture their faith. Instead of, stories of anbiya, instead of stories of sahaba, they're brought up upon what? The cartoon and the TV. Put them in front and in other words, let Dajjal do the work. Let Dajjal raise the kids. Let shaitan raise the kids. Put them in front of the TV, and whatever agenda and ideology and Cinderella and Snow White that's on there, all of that will come inside of their mind. Right? So, the successful way is that parents nurture their kids. Get them in contact with ulama, mashayikh, pious people, good mentors. But instead, what do? And what is Dajjal and Shaitan's plan? Their mentors should be Cinderella. Their mentor should be Aladdin. These are probably old cartoons, probably when I was a kid. I don't know what's out there now. But all of these things are the new mentors. These are the new mashayikh. These are the new heroes, which the children will look up to. All of these tactics will be used, but Allah reminds us, Inna ibadi laysa laka alayhim sultan. My special servants, you will never have power over them. You will never have power over my true servants. And again, this is going back for the home run. Whatever these powers are, whatever these weapons of shaitan and Dajjal and all these things that they have, it will never be powerful enough to do what? To remove belief and iman, and to outshine the faith that shines in the hearts of the believers. That darkness can never bring darkness in the heart of iman. That is something that is never going to happen. And that's why Allah is telling us here. In the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ says, there will always be a group from my ummah. When? Always. Never will that group cease to remain. It's always going to be there. They will be firm on the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. True servants of Allah, you will never fail to see them. Those who oppose them, لا يضرهم من خالفهم. Those who oppose them, they will never be able to stop them. Whatever means that they acquire, whatever music and tools and ropes that they will develop, warfare, whatever, you name it, it will never be enough to stop them. They will remain firm against the enemies of Allah. Whenever one battle ends, another will begin. This will continue until Qiyamah. So again, Allah is giving us this indication that the truth will always prevail, faith will always prevail. The forces of shaitan and Dajjal will never prevail. Now, one thing to keep in mind, like how we're telling you about, these weapons that Dajjal has and shaitan has, they'll use these ropes to pull people in and get them into their traps, right? If Dajjal is still locked up and he's in chains, right? Like the hadith of Tamim Dari, which says he's locked up in chains. So some people might say, well, how is he going to affect me then? Right? He's locked up and he's in chains. Remember, if he's a jinn, they can implement their plans in many different ways. Right? One jinn comes over there and talks to him, execute a plan over there. Send one person here, send one person there. They could enact all of their plans. Right? And an interesting point, like a similarity is given. In Ramadan, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that the shayateen are locked away. In Ramadan, all of the shayateen, they're locked up. Now people ask, in Ramadan, why do I still feel like committing sins? The shayateen are all given a 30-day prison sentence in solitary confinement. Right? So why do I still feel like committing sins? Why do I still get these temptations? Some of the ulama have given this answer that look, if the shayateen are imprisoned and they're behind bars, right? Like imagine if you go to a zoo, the lion is behind the fence. But if you come too close and you put your hand inside the bar, what is the lion going to do? He'll bite you from inside. I remember in South Africa, there was a zoo and there was like a walkway. If you want to get from this place to the next, there's a monkey cage. The monkey was chilling over there and he was a big Dajjal monkey. Anyone that passes by, he would spit at them. Right? So if you're trying to get to the next exhibit, you gotta like dodge the monkey trying to spit at you. Right? So like what does this show you? He's behind the bars, but he could still affect you. Right? So, if you want to be saved from the temptations of Dajjal and from Shaitan, do not go near their cages. Dajjal could be locked up, but don't go near his cage. And what is his cage? Some of the things that we've mentioned right here. These are just some of them. Don't go near him. The Prophet ﷺ has also mentioned, don't go near. There will be people who will claim to be believers. And when they go near the Dajjal, they will be completely taken. Before that, they'll be believers. We believe, we can go near Dajjal, no problem. Now all of a sudden you come close and what happens? You're taken. Right? And this is how some of the youth are today. You know? They come out from bad backgrounds. They stop the drugs, they stop the clubbing, they stop all of these things, and then they say, oh man, my old friends, I'm just going to give them some da'wah. Da'wah, with a good ayn pronounced on there. Just give them some da'wah. Inshallah, we're all going to spend the night at the masjid, you know. Next thing you know, when he's giving the da'wah, he starts off the da'wah, but by the time it's midnight, he's already dancing inside of the rave himself. By 12:30, he's already intoxicated. That was his da'wah. Don't go near. The Prophet ﷺ is warning, don't even go near the traps of shaitan. Now to understand how shaitan works, how Iblis and the forces of evil, how they work, we talked about last week, a lot of it involves magic and sorcery. A lot of it involves magic and sorcery. So inshallah, the next step, what we're going to do now is jump back in the time machine. And now we're going to move a little bit forward. And we're going to talk about how magic came about. And what effect does it have? And what does it do? And how does it influence? So with regards to this, we look at the verse of the Quran. وَلَمَّا جَاءَهُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ. When the Rasul of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came to them, to the people of the book, مُصَدِّقٌ لِمَا مَعَهُمْ. It was testifying to that which was with them. Their sacred books, whatever was in there, the messenger, يعني the Prophet alayhi salam, was testifying to whatever the scriptures that they had. It was all matching up. What did they do? نَبَذَ فَرِيقٌ مِّنَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابِ كِتَابَ اللَّهِ وَرَاءَ ظُهُورِهِمْ كَأَنَّهُمْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. They threw the book of Allah behind their backs. They threw the book of Allah where? Behind their backs. And it's mentioned, when the verses came and the Rasul came, they said, let's take the Torah and let's compare with the Quran. Both of them were matching the same. They said, no, we cannot accept this. So eventually what did they do? وَاتَّبَعُوا مَا تَتْلُو الشَّيَاطِينَ عَلَى مُلْكِ سُلَيْمَانَ. What did they choose instead? They chose that which the shayateen would recite in the era of Sulaiman alayhi salam. They left the Tawrat, they left the Quran, and what did they accept as a substitute? That which was recited upon the tongues of the shayateen during the era of Sulaiman alayhi salam. That's what they chose instead. وَلَقَدْ عَلِمُوا. They knew very well that whoever takes this, whoever sells their souls to the shayateen and take this magic and witchcraft, مَا لَهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنْ خَلَاقٍ. They'll have no share whatsoever in the akhirah. They're doomed. They're finished. They're over. There's nothing left for them. What made these people so intrigued when it came to the science of magic that they were willing to give up their entire akhirah? They disbelieved in their Torah. They disbelieved in the messengers. They threw these books behind their backs. And they said, no, this magic that we got, this is more valuable to us. We want to take this instead. The worldly pleasures and the worldly powers, the talent, the ability to invent, the ability to come up with different inventions and power and fame, this pull was so powerful and strong that they said, we'll give up our akhirah. We'll give up the hereafter. We want what this magic has to offer. And the Quran says, the two angels, Harut and Marut, they taught the people based on the command of Allah in Babylon, which is modern day Iraq. And they told the people, do not disbelieve. Do not take this science and make it into magic and become amongst the people of disbelief because you want to get the pleasures of this world. Don't do it, it's not worth it. فَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مِنْهُمَا مَا يَضُرُّهُمْ وَلَا يَنْفَعُهُمْ. The people learned that which harmed them and which did not benefit them. They sold their souls, and eventually what happens? You get some worldly power, but your akhirah is destroyed. And now look at the narration Ibn Kathir mentions, rahimahullah. He says, a woman came to Aisha radiallahu anha. She was perturbed, she was scared, she was worried. And she said, Ya Aisha, I've ruined myself. She said, what happened? She said, let me tell you. It's a long story. She said, my husband went missing. I heard of a lady that's able to help out. I went to her. She said, if you want me to help you, locate your husband. Whatever I say, you must obey me. She said, whatever you say, I'm willing to obey you. She came with 2 dogs, 2 black, dark dogs. She said, I will sit on this one and you sit on the other one. She said that she jumped on that dog and eventually where did they end up? Babylon, Iraq. And where did the 2 angels teach the magic? Babylon. She says, suddenly I was in a room, like a cave type place, and there were 2 people hanging upside down. And they brought a big bucket and they told me to urinate inside of this bucket. And possibly inside of that bucket, there were sacred things inside of there. Because that's how magic works. That's how selling your soul to the devil works. Is you have to engage in filth. You have to engage in filth and desecration of sacred things. And by the way, if you look at a lot of these so-called celebrities and stars, you will hear confessions from a lot of them that before jumping into the circle of fame, what types of things that they had to engage in. You'll be surprised and shocked. She said, when that bucket was brought to me, I could not do it. She had some iman inside of her heart. She said, I could not do it. Again, second time, third time, they kept bringing the bucket. She says, finally I did it. And she said, when I did it, I saw there was a horseman covered in iron came out of my body and descended up into the heavens. In iron, covered in iron, a horseman descended up into the heavens. And what did the 2 people hanging upside down? They said, look, there's your iman, there's your faith, it's gone up. It's finished. And she said, now look what you have. Take these seeds and plant it. She took those seeds and she says immediately as she planted it, before she could put water, before she could do anything, the seeds start growing, things start coming out, and bread is starting to be produced. And said, look, congratulations. Look at the power that you have been granted. And she says, oh Aisha, I've ruined myself. She comes and she's repenting and she says, I ask Allah for forgiveness. What have I done? So you can see what happens here. You sell your soul to the shayateen. You make them happy by desecrating your deen, and which intrigues them and makes them happy. And they facilitate for you what? Some worldly benefits. The Quran says, رَبَّنَا اسْتَمْتَعَ بَعْضُنَا بِبَعْضٍ. O our Lord, some of us took benefit from some. Yani the humans took benefit from the jinns. We would utilize these powers that they would give us. And now after our death, قَالَ النَّارُ مَثْوَاكُمْ خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا. Now that you've died, all of you, your abode is Jahannam. You benefited from each other in the dunya, you enjoyed, you got your pleasures, you got your power, you got your fame. Now, enjoy the rest of your life in Jahannam. Fast forward now, jump into the time machine. You guys have studied in history. The first civilizations that they talk about is what? Mesopotamia. Where is Mesopotamia? Babylon. Where is this? Iraq. Why did some of the first civilizations that had so much power, so much order, so much control, why did it start off in Mesopotamia and Babylon? Magic. A lot of it had to do with these evil rulers who were taking benefit from jinnat and shayateen. The first evil guy that came from Babylon was who? Nimrud. The one that battled against Ibrahim alayhi salam. His empire lasted 500 years approximately. Then after him, there came Bukhtanasar. Who's Bukhtanasar? They call him Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar, Bukhtanasar. He was also an evil man, and he came from the same area, Babylon. Right? And then later on you had different empires that came. And all of these, they most probably had been doing what? Utilizing this magic that was coming out. Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu, he said to the people of Kufa, which is in Iraq, he said, Dajjal is going to come out amongst you people. What does that show you? This place of magic and sorcery and witchcraft, it has a lot to do with Dajjal. They're intertwined, they're linked. And the Prophet ﷺ, he would point towards the east, he would point towards the Iraq region, and he would say, Shar is going to come out from there. Evil is going to come out from that land. Right? And not to say that there's no good in Iraq. Right? We're not trying to put anyone down. Iraq had a lot of great ulama. It had a lot of great benefits for the ummah. And also, a lot of shar came from there. And if you look at history of that area, this place where magic started, some of this we covered also. Umar ibn al-Khattab, right? When he became shaheed, radiyallahu anhu, where did the person come from? He came from that place. The Khawarij, right? The Khawarij, which eventually caused a lot of battles and spilt a lot of blood, they also came from this place. Other different people came. The Qadariyya, the Jabariyya, all people with mixed up beliefs, they came from this land. Then you also had Hajjaj bin Yusuf. He murdered thousands of people. He also came from this land. The people that conspired against Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu anhu, they also came from this land. The people that conspired Hussein radiyallahu anhu in Karbala, the whole assassination there, they also came from this land. So it shows you that there has always been something about relationship with magic, sorcery, shayateen, and evil coming out from this place. Right? This place of Babylon, because of its relationship with magic. Now, to the era of Sulaiman alayhi salam. And this is a very important part. There is a narration that's mentioned in our tafasir which talk about Sulaiman alayhi salam and something that happened during his kingdom, right? The bottom line is, what exactly happened, the details are unknown to us for sure. And there are different narrations and different theories that are given what exactly happened. But the bottom line is, Sulaiman alayhi salam, for a temporary period of time, he lost his kingdom. And someone else was sitting on his throne for a period of time. And we all know, Sulaiman alayhi salam was a king prophet. He controlled the whole world. He controlled jinnat. He would ride on the clouds and the wind would take him wherever he wants. He would talk to the animals. He would command the animals. So such a great leader who had such an amazing kingdom. Mulkan la yanbaghi li ahadin min ba'di. Oh Allah, give me such a kingdom which nobody will have after me. What happened with Sulaiman alayhi salam? He lost his kingdom for a period of time. وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّا سُلَيْمَانَ. We tested Sulaiman. Ibn Kathir says, how did we test him? We tested him by taking away his kingdom for a moment of time. So, the incident which has been narrated, right? And this comes in a lot of tafasir. It's been narrated from Ibn Abbas. It's been narrated from Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu anhu. It says that Sulaiman alayhi salam, he had two people, many people, but two important people that would work for him. Two important people that would work for him. One, his name was Asif. Who was Asif? Asif was a good man, a righteous man, upright, and a good companion and worker for Sulaiman alayhi salam. The second person, his name was Sakhar. He's actually not a person, he's a jinn. And he's a very rebellious jinn who didn't want to work for Sulaiman alayhi salam, but Sulaiman alayhi salam had that authority, and he wanted Sakhar specifically because he had a lot of talent. He was really good in architecture, building things, making things. And as the Quran displays, that Sulaiman alayhi salam, in his kingdom, he had a lot of things that would be built, huge pots, huge buildings, these kinds of things. That was part of his dominion and his kingdom. And he would use Sakhar for a lot of these different duties and tasks. So eventually what happened, you guys know it comes in the Quran, Bilqis and the story of Saba, the throne eventually was brought, right? And Sulaiman alayhi salam, he asked, who can bring the throne? The jinn said, I'll bring it. And then the pious person said, I'll bring it right away in the blink of an eye, and suddenly it appeared. That was Asif who did that. And the jinn that wanted to bring it, that was Sakhar. And he got jealous and he got angry, which is the quality of shayateen. Oh man, this human being Asif, he's better than me. He was able to bring the throne quicker than me. Now he started to conspire a plan. How he can get revenge from Asif. How can he show that he's better than Asif? So part of this plan was what? He somehow got hold of the ring of Sulaiman alayhi salam. And in that ring of Sulaiman alayhi salam, it had a lot to do with the dominion and power of his kingdom and his control over the jinnat. Sakhar somehow got hold of that ring, and he told Sulaiman alayhi salam, it's okay, don't worry, the kingdom will be alright under Asif, you go and you get your ring, so that the dominion and all of that can still be protected. Sulaiman alayhi salam left for a period of time, and someone got on his throne. And the Quran says, وَأَلْقَيْنَا عَلَى كُرْسِيِّهِ جَسَدًا. We threw upon his throne, his chair, a body. Who was that body? Now the best interpretation that has been given of this is that Sakhar murdered Asif in retaliation because he was angry. He murdered Asif, and since he was a jinn, and now he has power because Sulaiman's ring is missing. The ring had a lot of power because that was something that had an influence in the dominion and kingdom. So he was able to kind of get loose. So he murdered Asif, he went inside of his body, and he sat on the throne of Sulaiman alayhi salam. Now as he's on the throne of Sulaiman alayhi salam, he starts teaching the people. He starts teaching the jinnat, and he starts teaching the people there. What does he teach them? Sorcery, magic, witchcraft. And they have all of these scrolls where this demonic science is being taught to the people.
They thought it was Asif, right?
They're thinking that it's Asif. He's a good man. But it's Sakhar. And then eventually what happens? Sulaiman alayhi salam comes back. He sees what has happened. And Sakhar is imprisoned. He's tied to a boulder. He's thrown in the ocean. And Sulaiman alayhi salam has all of those things buried beneath the temple. Where? Buried beneath the temple. Where's the temple of Sulaiman alayhi salam? Jerusalem. Why is this such an important place in modern times? Ring any bells? 17th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th centuries. Why is this such an important place? Now, jump into the time machine. The Crusades that took place. A lot of people say the Crusades was not just for religious warfare. Part of it had to do with what? Money and power. Discovering what? The scrolls which had been buried beneath the temple of Sulaiman alayhi salam. It was not about holy lands and we want to pray and we want to worship God. No. Maybe some people were like that. Of course. But a lot of people were looking for what? The scrolls, so that they could get that same type of power which was granted to where? The beginning people of Babylon. Those huge empires, those huge nations. So now the pursuit for getting this had come about. Now, just as a side point before we carry on. Just as a side point. Allah mentions in the Quran about Sulaiman alayhi salam, the people that used to work for him. وَآخَرِينَ مُقَرَّنِينَ فِي الْأَصْفَادِ. He would have some of his workers chained up. Okay, some of his workers would be chained up just to make sure that they don't run away and get released. So Imam Tabari rahimahullah in his tafsir, he says their hands would be chained to their necks. And when you go back to the hadith of Tamim Dari, it says exactly the way Dajjal was chained in the cave, his arms were chained to his neck. So some people, they say, a great possibility could be that Sakhar that was thrown into the thing was given the name as Asif. Because why? Because he took the body of Asif, right? So, a lot of people say, that is the Dajjal. And that's the same person that Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam had chained up. Because the same exact method, you see it's in the Quran and in the tafsir, and in the hadith it's the same exact way. And this guy, Asif, which was the body, but the actual person was who? Sakhar. But the people of Shaitan and Dajjal, they call him Asif. So some people say the name is Hiram. Hiram Asif or Abith. He's actually a famous person. They call him the grand architect of the universe. The grand architect of the universe. And he's a very influential person in all of these secret societies and secret nations. You know, like the Freemasonry and the Knights Templar and all of these things. So you can see there's a connection and a link with all of this evil that's taking place. So now, one last thing that we're going to cover is the Crusades. When the Crusades took place, initially they said, okay, we're going to empty the Holy Lands, we're going to allow the Christians to enjoy freedom and worship and all of these things. And then, this is written by a person from the Knights Templar himself. Okay? So he says, his name is Charles S. Davis. He says, 9 knights, they came into the lands of Jerusalem And what did they do? They stayed specifically at a place near the old Jewish temple. You understand?
Yeah.
And what did they do for 3 years? They spent their time digging and excavating. Digging and excavating for 3 years. It looks like they're looking for something that's pretty important to them. They went back to France with their excavations. Nobody really knows what it was. And he's giving his theories. He says some people say it's this. Some people say it's the Holy Grail, the cup which Isa a.s. drank from. And he does say that some people say that what it was is the ancient scrolls, giving them the secrets of alchemy and architecture. That could be the scrolls which were buried beneath the thing. So then what happens immediately after this? From 9 nights, they eventually come into how much? 300. And then they start coming into the thousands. And then next thing you know, funding starts coming in from all over the world. So what's happening immediately after they started digging? They're getting popularity, they're getting lots of fame, and they're getting lots of money. The things which lovers of Satan and lovers of Shaitan and lovers of Dajjal, the thing which they'll bow down for head over heels 100% of the time. They're getting those things right away. And what else did they do? Established bonds with all the political leaders of their times. Freemasonry, the people that follow in their footsteps. You can see so many presidents, so many politicians, so many ministers. They're all part of this movement, right? And ajib thing is, they established the world's first international banking system. Dajjal will have what? Power over wealth. Because he'll have a monopoly. You know, like all of these capitalist corporations, what are they trying to do? Have complete authority over the wealth of the world. And then other people can't do anything. So they're the first ones that started this. It says you would get you would deposit your money in one place, they'll give you a note, you go thousands of miles away, you give them that note, they'll give you the money over there. So you don't have to carry the money with you while you're traveling. Right? And what does he say? He goes on to say, the order has 5,500 nights. He's talking about now, currently. And he says that one of the largest components is composed, this is his words, quote, composed strictly of the military command officers of NATO. In 2002, the order in the US had them sponsor 5,000 Afghan women's education programs and also help change NATO's rules of engagements. A lot of political affairs that happen all around the world, they're having a hand and a say in all of this. And that's why a lot of ulama, they say, part of Dajjal's power over wealth is going to be in the form of a lot of these organizations, NGOs, which look like they're very innocent. And I'm not saying this that now every organization that's out there, you're going to start saying this is Dajjal. No, I'm not saying that. You have to explore and be careful with all of these possibilities that are out there, right? That, you know, like certain countries, they get aids from specific NGOs, right? So now if all of a sudden any specific NGO says, you know what, we're not going to give you money anymore, what are they going to do? They're going to be stuck. Their whole source of wealth was from those people, right? So this was basically the beginning of what you could say the magic coming into play into the modern era. And a lot of the nations that eventually started to become built up, they were built from these inventions that had taken place, from magic. And inshallah, you know, we've been going kind of overtime right now. So let's stop here inshallah, and in the next session, inshallah, we'll cover a little bit more in specific details now about one by one. You know, like for example, wealth. What are the ways that's going to happen? Agriculture. What are the ways that Dajjal can have power over this? Right? What else is there? His conveyance. How does that play in modern times, right? So inshallah, we'll take a look at a lot of these things in detail, one by one, in the next session, inshallah. So